Welcome to the Traveling Professors. I'm Professor Bob.
And I'm Professor Sherry.
And together we are
the Traveling Professors.
Today, in show number 64, Sherry and I are going to take you on part 2 of the fortification walk of the city of Rhodes. The last time we went through from the Amboise Gate to the harbor. Now we're going to go through the land fortifications from the harbor all the way back to the Amboise Gate. So we hope you enjoy this. Well, let's start off with something we're familiar with. Here is the medieval idea of what the city of Rhodes looked like from a fortification standpoint. And then here's a map that we'll be using frequently. Now we're going to be going from where we left off, which was right here with the wall turned inland from the harbor. We're going to go from this area down by the point of where St. Catherine's Gate was, all the way up to this fortification, which is known as the Tower of Italy, and the Del Caranto bulwark. Now, bulwark is anything that surrounds a tower to give it reinforcing. In this case, it's a kind of a half-moon shaped circle. Later on, there'll be kind of like a star fort. From an aerial view of today's city, you can see where we're going to be located and where we're headed. In the time of the invasion of Suleiman the Magnificent, which is 1522, the Turks put most of their heavy artillery in this location over here, in what is known as where the Spanish Tower is. Then they also had a large battery in this region, which was also part of what is known as the English post, and they will be there for quite some time. But when they first put them in, they were in such a hurry to get started that they didn't bother to put them in the trenches because they thought they were at the weakest part of the fortification. They had 60 to 80 cannons, large ones, for the whole siege, 12 mortars, and a bunch of smaller cannons. But at any rate, the battery that was placed in this area, which was about 4 large cannons and 4 smaller ones as well, when they opened fire, they were very much surprised to find that the Knights of Rhodes had those areas all targeted, and they lost half their cannons in the first day. Now here's an artist's rendition of what this section of fortification, or would have looked like. This outer wall, which was right up against the harbor, which heads down and then connects to the bulwark in front of the Tower of Italy. Now, of course, today, this front part is gone. They needed it for harbor. They still have the secondary wall. And I would also tell you that this fortification in Rhodes is built kind of like Constantinople. There's 3 layers of defenses. So if you get through the outer defense, there's a secondary defense, and then there's a final wall fence. So anyway, let's start walking. So here's where we left off the last time. We were walking around the harbor, and we're coming to the corner. And then once we turn that corner, we walk a little distance, and then this is the gate, and this is an access point, and this is where actually the trench or the ditch begins. So once you get down into the ditch, here is your view of the wall. So we're going to be walking around the corner, and they have cannonballs scattered all over the place. So we're walking at what looks like a relatively low wall, but it's not something that you can easily access, and there's more dense fortifications behind it. And then you come around the corner, and you see the Tower of Italy, and then you see the bulwark all the way around it. And you'll see where they can put guns down in the lower level so they can shoot cannonballs to roll them around at the infantry. And then you would have your regular troops up here on the top. So here's where you get a little bit closer. This is looking to where we're headed next. You can see the bulwark then from the back side. So that was the first little section, a very simple little section. Now our next section of the wall picks up where we left off. That is the Tower of Italy, which is located right here. And we're going to go all the way down this stretch to this very large fortification here known as the Tower and Gate of St. John. It is defended by what is known as the Knights from Provence. That is part of the Knights of Rhodes, but they're from the Provence area of France. And then here is the view of what the fortification looked like. The back wall is what was there in 1480-81 when it was first attacked with artillery. And you see how the Knights of Rhodes reinforced their area. They still have these 2 smaller towers, but they put this very large bulwark in front of the tower that had been on the corner. Leaving our Tower of Italy, here's our view as we're walking down. This is one of the little square forts right here. And then as you get by it, they have a stage set up because they do performances here as well as history lessons. And here is the place where you would sit for your entertainment. Then getting back on the route, we head towards the next little tower, which had some fortifications around it. You see this wall with this entrance. This gate is where we came out originally. So here's what it looks like if you're coming out through that particular section. So this is one of the access points that you can enter from the old city. And then turning around, you see the other side of that fortification, which is actually the small one. So now we're heading further down. We're going to walk down this ditch. So now we start coming to the Tower of St. John and the Gate of St. John. You can see the tower up above. Then here's another view from a different area. See how they have it kind of bumped out a little bit? Then here we have the bulwark up in front, kind of hidden by the tree. And then if you turn around and look back the other direction, you see the various fortifications that were there. The one tower, there's the other tower back behind it, and there's the Tower of Italy. And going back to the Tower of St. John, here's where one wall connects one of the levels. And of course you have another wall back behind it for protection. And then you can see the bulwark, how it kind of angles off in this section. And you go around this corner and you'll see the bridge. Now notice the bridge has a little drawbridge on it at this particular time. This bulwark is actually, if you could get up above it, get a nice little drone shot of it, you can see that this is also, you can cut it off. So if you lose this, it's no big deal. They could just retreat back into the main city. Then you walk through, there's a view where we're headed, and now we're going to get into some really extensive stuff. But we have one more little shot I want to show you. This is the view up from the ground, looking at the little drawbridge crossing over to where the bulwark is. And then you notice above the gate, they have these engravings. And these are usually the coat of arms of the people who are defending that section of the wall. Needless to say that you can imagine how difficult it would be for the Ottomans to try and capture this place by charging across this narrow bridge. Or even for that matter, how in the world they're going to build ladders or whatever it is to get up. But in reality, what the Ottomans are going to be doing is they're going to be firing from the other side across the ditch at these fortifications, while their miners are tunneling underneath the ditch to try and put explosive underneath the various towers. Now our next section starts from the Tower of St. John and the gate. You can see the bastion pretty well. And then we're going to go all the way down to right at the edge of the picture, which is the Tower of the Virgin Mary and the Tower and Gate of St. Athanasia. But it's going to have a really interesting feature. You can kind of see it here. It looks like there's a dirt path. Well, that's not a dirt path. That is a tunnel. And there's another one on the other side of it. This is one of the two sections where the Ottomans began doing their blasting. So here is the area that is, this is supposedly the one that is defended by the English members of the Knights of Rhodes. But the Spanish will also come in and assist them as well. So that area where we're going to walk is just supposed to be under the control of the English. And here is the artist's view. Notice when you're walking in the ditch, you have no idea that what is next to you isn't just the main wall of the city of Rhodes. But it isn't. It's this structure of defense. These are pretty easy to put up. What you do is you put up some stone on one side, and then you fill it with debris or dirt, put some more stone on the back side, and you can fight from up here, but it does deflect, because it's usually the same height as the other wall. It makes it difficult for the Turkish artillery to attack your main wall, particularly since this is an access point into the city. And then look at the bastion on this one. It is gigantic. And you see the old wall in the back, and you see the massive additions that was added between 1480 and 1522. So let's get on the ground level here. We're at the base of the Tower of St. John, and we're walking towards the other tower. You come in, you see this little fortification right here on the edge, a little bump out for it. If you walk by the wall, there's an entrance and probably a sally port or what have you. And then you have all of these other pieces in here where you can shoot through them if you wanted to. But if you get on the back side, if you go through to the back side of this, a little closer view, this is what you see. These are little areas where your cannon would be. Now remember, these are not going to be on wheels, so you just put your cannon here. You can actually shoot up above, and then you fire it, but you notice it's practically on ground level. Here's one where they have it up a little higher, so you'd have your secondary point. And the idea is simply to fire these cannonballs at your opponents, and they'll just keep rolling around, hitting the walls, bouncing back and forth, doing all sorts of damage. So we walk out of that little bump out fort, and it looks like here's a wall fortification. But it looks awful thin when you look up at the top part here where the crenellations are. So looking down the whole stretch, here's one view of this tunnel. And then from this angle, you can see how long it is. And it goes all the way down to the other end. And that's where the fort and the Tower of the Virgin Mary are located. To give you an idea how tall this is, here's a picture that Sherry took of me standing next to it. Your view as an attacker makes this wall look insurmountably high, but if you were up on top, it's almost the opposite. It looks like, oh, I can get him pretty easily. So we continue down, and here's a nice shot showing where the Turks would have been on this side, firing over, and the Knights of Rhodes firing back. And they have cannonballs scattered all through this region, and they're massive. So we get down to the end, and of course this also has a nice little bridge with a little drawbridge removable section. Now there's one of the nice things about this is we were able to get up on the top of this. Not at this time. At this time we're just traveling the whole ditch. When we came back from our trip out to ancient Rhodes, this was one of the ways we accessed the city. We were able to walk across that. Here's the side of this bastion that goes all the way around the bottom of it. Again, with these cannon spaces. Now I know people are going to climb through there. You know, you got to climb through head first or feet first. Boy, you got an axe, you got a mallet. It makes quick work of you. So you got to the end, got here, turned, and had this gap. And I'm like, what in the world is this? The wall doesn't come up here. So we walked back towards the wall, and there you see it. You see the Tenille on the right side. You see the main fortification on the other side. Now you see one of the reasons why they built this. The towers in this area are square, which are very susceptible to artillery. You know, they're supposed to round them. And you can put men up here and they can fight, and they have access to the steps to get down, so you can indeed run for cover. Now, if you were to get up on top to get a view of this, this is what you would see. Now, this is not a picture of this particular Tenille. This is the one from the next section that we'll be looking at, which is shorter. And you can see there's a set of steps, there's the fighting area, and again, it's blocking the access to the front wall. But the main fortification here, like I said at Constantinople, ditch, forward wall, massive back wall. And then this is how you got back into the city if you needed to. You have this little entrance area, which can be blocked off, and this is looking back. But as I said, Sherry and I are able to get up, so we're going to give you a view of what it looks like to come in from the top. This is the Ottoman eye view of attacking the bastion and the fortifications there at the Tower of the Virgin Mary. So that is the bridge across there. I think they drive cars over that, but there is a parking area here. We start across the bridge. Here's a view off one side where you can see the bastion, and then here's a view looking off the other where you can see that whole length of that Tenille. And again, it looked like kind of a short bridge, but we're out in the middle of it, and it looks quite distant. Here's another view from up here on the bridge showing the main fortification wall and then the Tenille in front. Here is the entrance to the bastion from the bridge. So these sections right here would have been able to be removed, but you're not in the city yet. You get across in here, and you're still walking through, and there's another removable section of bridge and another gate. So this is the main gate that you see here in the background. Everything else is just fortifications on top of the bastion. Now, if you get through that gate and you take a right, and you can drive through here, this is the Tower of St Athanasius. The view from this area, again, you can see the back of the Tenille across here. You go into the tower, and it does gradually go down, but here's the road at ground level, and then you can then go out into the city from there. So that's the bridge and the bastion and everything from the Ottoman viewpoint if you're attacking. Back to ground level and the ditch. So we are now going to be going from the Tower of the Virgin Mary to the Tower of Spain, which is controlled by the Spanish. And then here is the aerial view of where that is located. We're going from here to here, and then here is another closer view, Tower of Spain, right here. And then the next section we'll be going over to this very large bastion, the St. George Bastion. And here's the artist view of what you see. We're just dealing with the Spanish part here because it has the little Tenille off the side down here. So let's see what it looks like from ground level. Well, here we are. We're leaving the Tower of the Virgin Mary. So we're going around the corner. Once we get on the other side, we see this little bit of fortification that goes with the bastion for the Tower of the Virgin Mary. And then that's a little closer view of the piece of fortification that goes between the bastion to the Virgin Mary and the Tenille that goes down to the Tower of Spain. And then we turn, and here is the view of what we think is the wall, but in reality is the Tenille, that wall in front of a wall. And then way down at the end is the Tower of Spain with its bastion. So when you walk all the way down there, you can see the tower. So here we have the Tower of Spain. There's the tower up there, and there's Bastion around it. And you can see they have the fortification, the lower cannons as well, to do the bowling for Turks. And they even have one over here, which of course would fire between the Tenille and the main wall. So they really like doing this. Now here's where you see where they all come together. Here is the Tenille here on the right-hand side. There is the main wall to the city of Rhodes. And there is the Bastion, or the Tower of Spain. And when you walk around that corner, this is what you see. There's the Tenille. It's a little wider area between this and the wall compared to the first one. And then you see again the square walls of the secondary fortification. When you walk back up a little bit, you see the point, the sheer point that comes at the end of the Tenille. Now if you go up above, this is what it would look like. Here's the fortification, the Tenille, and you can see the fort walls on either side. But it's just shorter, just a smaller section. And then as we start walking away from the Tower of Spain, we take a look back at the Tenille, its fortifications, and down the ditch, heading back towards the Tower of the Virgin Mary. Okay, using our map of Rhodes, we are now going to go from right here, which is the Tower of Spain, to the Bastion of St George. And there are a couple of smaller towers right in between the two of them as well. And you can see on our who's in charge of what part of the wall, this part of the wall is defended by the knights from Ouvrage in France. And then here's an aerial view. You can see the Tower of Spain here. And so we'll be doing this little stretch and then look at the Bastion of St. George. Walking away from the Tower of Spain, this is the view that you have. You can see we have the one tower that kind of juts out here. And then when we get a little closer, here you can see the tower. It's about a third of the way from the Bastion of St. George. So here's the tower. We're looking right in front of it. Now there's no Tenille in this area. They only had them in the last two sections. And then here you see where the walls come together, right where the Bastion of St. George is located. And there's a view of the wall. And this one is in a polygon, so this one has sharp edges. Notice how the walls are sloped to make sure that the cannonball's impact is deflected as much as possible. There we are looking around the corner of this bastion. As you can see, it's quite extensive. It's pretty long. So we walk all the way down and then take another turn another corner. And now we're beginning to look out into kind of a plain area where you're heading towards the entrance to the city from the Amboise Gate. And then backing away a little bit, here's a view of the Bastion of St. George from, I'm basically right next to the edge of the ditch, the other wall. And then here's a shot showing, again, another sharp edge as it heads off to the rest of the fortification. So this is a gigantic bastion sitting right in the middle of this wall. And that is the Bastion of St. George. Well, we're finally to the last section of the fortification. We are right here at the St. George Bastion. And we're going to be looking at the area from the edge of the St. George Bastion all the way to here, which is the Amboise Gates. And this is a very large, wide open area. Now this particular area of the map is defended by the Germans, and there was a large contingent of heavy artillery that was here for a while. But ultimately they gave up and tried moving it down to the harbor to attack the fortress of St. Nicholas, which was also unsuccessful. And then an aerial view a little closer shows here's the edge of the St. George Bastion. And you can see how it juts out from the wall. And then the Amboise Gate is right down here. But this is, as I said, is a very wide open area. And here's a perfect example of that. I'm standing right next to the side of the wall of the St. George Bastion, looking towards the gate of Amboise. And it's not a narrow area, it's a wide open area. So turning and looking, there's the edge of the bastion, which goes all the way up to the wall. And then in this shot, we see the wall meandering over with the tower. And then we'll see that from ground level, from the walkway. But if we get closer to that wall, you can see that there is it's kind of a sally port. But you can see how thick the wall is by looking. When you get close to it, you can actually walk down through that. And you can see this particular area. And of course, one of the things that the Ottomans did was they tunneled under a lot of the fortifications, particularly the towers, trying to blow them up or rubble them. So there were all sorts of methods trying to make sure that didn't happen. And then getting closer to the Amboise Gate, right here, at the very end with the bridge, which is where we started. And then here's a closer view of the Amboise fortifications. And then looking back the other direction to see that expanse of area. There is the St. George's Bastion right here, and then the wall coming up this direction. And that completes our trip all the way around the fortress. And Sherry and I did this in one day. Actually, I think it was about 4 hours to make the whole trip around the circuit. After talking about all of the cannonballs and cannons during the siege of Rhodes in 1522, Sherry took a picture of me amidst the average-sized cannonballs. I would point out that during the siege in 1522, it's believed that the Ottomans fired between 1,200 and 1,500 of these cannonballs. And as far as we can tell from the records, only 25 Knights of Rhodes were killed by the cannonballs. But that doesn't count the regular people and the lesser nobles, so they may have lost more than that. But that's the cannonballs, and you will find sections where they're actually stuck into the walls. Sherry and I hope you enjoyed the tour. Please come by our YouTube channel at Bob Packett, and please subscribe and leave some comments. Thank you very much. I've been doing podcasting on history for over 15 years. I've got over 4,000 shows, and I've done CDs, which of course can be sent out as USBs. So if you would really like to get more on history for free, then come by my website, as you see here, historyaccordingtobob.com, and see what's there. So thank you very much again.